Welcome to Reinventing Broadcast, where AI meets content. Hosted by Ben Anchor. Let's dive in.
On the 13th of August this year, a new channel appeared in the live lineup on the Roku Channel. If you were scrolling past it, you would not have thought twice. It sits in the grid like everything else. It has a name, it has a schedule, it has ad breaks. It looks, in every structural sense, like a television channel, and it is the first one in the world where nobody is in it. Not the presenters, because there are none. Not the actors, because there are none. Not the camera operators, or the colorists, or the sound recordists, because there was no shoot. Every frame of it is generated. The company that made it calls it AI cinema. Within about 48 hours, most of the internet had settled on a different phrase, which was AI slop. And I want to be honest at the top of this episode. My first reaction was the second phrase. My second reaction, about a day later, was that arguing about whether it is any good is the least interesting conversation available here, and that the actually interesting thing is what the existence of that channel tells us about a much bigger claim I heard made at an artificial intelligence summit recently, which was that within 18 months we will see a company that runs itself. No employees, just the machine.
Start with the facts then, because I want the shape of it before we get to the philosophy. Who built this and what is actually on it?
It is called Fairground AI Creator TV, from a startup called Fairground Entertainment. And the founder detail is the part everyone skipped, because it changes how seriously you should take it. It was founded by Colin Petrie Norris, who was the chief executive of Xumo. Xumo was one of the original free ad-supported streaming platforms. So this is not a group of prompt engineers who wandered in from outside. This is someone who helped build the distribution model in the first place, coming back to fill it with a new kind of supply. They raised a $4 million seed round led by Viant Technology. It launched across more than 5 connected television and streaming platforms, with Roku the one everybody noticed. And the content comes from named creators in the generative space, people like Kelly Bosch, studios like Phantom X, Massive Studios, Wonder Studios. So it is curated. Somebody chose what went on. It is not a fire hose.
And yet, the reception was brutal. Futurism called it an unending conveyor belt of slop. Slate published a review that reads like a hostage note. Is the criticism fair?
Mostly, yes, on the merits. If you sit and watch it, the failure modes are the ones you would predict. Faces that drift between shots. Physics that is nearly right, and therefore worse than obviously wrong. And a total absence of the thing that makes narrative work, which is a scene that was built because somebody wanted it to mean something. It is competent and it is empty. But here is why I do not want to spend this episode on that, and it is the same reason I would not have spent an episode in 1999 explaining that video on the internet looked terrible. Of course it did. The quality of the first version has almost no predictive value. What has predictive value is the cost curve underneath it, and the cost curve underneath this is the story.
Then walk me through the economics, because free ad-supported television is a business I would describe as tight at the best of times.
It is brutally tight, and that is exactly why this landed here first rather than anywhere else. A free streaming channel makes money on advertising against watch hours. The advertising rates are low, so the entire business is a race between the cost of filling 24 hours a day and the revenue those hours can generate. Which is why the free streaming ecosystem is largely built on library content, on formats nobody is licensing at a premium anymore, on the back catalogue. Because the marginal cost of putting an old program on again is close to nothing. Now watch what generated content does to that equation. It does not lower the cost of content. It removes the floor entirely. There is no acquisition, no rights window, no residuals, no revert. If your channel costs almost nothing to fill and it earns even a small amount, it is profitable on day one, and it is profitable at a scale of 1 channel or 1,000 channels. That is the bit that matters, not the quality. The fact that the supply side has become effectively infinite while the demand side, which is human attention in the evening, has not moved at all.
Which is a genuinely uncomfortable thought, because infinite supply against fixed demand is not a technology story. That is a pricing story.
It is a pricing story, and it points in one direction. If the amount of watchable material goes up by orders of magnitude, and the number of hours in an evening does not, then the value of any individual hour of content falls, not the value of the best hour, the value of the average hour. And most of our industry is not in the business of making the best hour. Most of our industry is in the business of reliably making the average one, on schedule, on budget, to a standard. That is where the employment is. So the honest read is not that generated content will replace prestige drama. It is that it competes directly with the enormous middle of the market, the filler, the acquired formats, the daytime, the things that exist, because the schedule has to be filled. And that middle is where a very large number of people in this industry actually work.
All right, take me to the summit, because you have been sitting on that comparison since the top of the episode, and I want to know why the two things belong in the same conversation.
Because the channel is the same idea, only smaller and earlier. The claim I heard, and it is a claim being made in various forms across the summit circuit this year, is that within roughly 18 months, we will see a genuinely autonomous company, not a company that uses artificial intelligence. A company where the agents do the work end to end. They find the customer, they make the thing, they invoice, they handle the support ticket, they file the accounts, and no human sits in the loop on any given day. And the summit framing is quite specific about the stages. You go from co-pilots, which is where most organizations actually are, to agents doing bounded tasks, to autonomous workflows that run without a person initiating them. The end state they describe is an organization chart with nobody on it.
And my instinct is that this is the same species of claim as the fully automated newsroom, which we have discussed before and which has consistently failed to arrive. What is the evidence either way?
The evidence is genuinely split, and I will give you both halves. In favour, the adoption curve is steep, and it is real. Task-specific agents went from under 5% adoption last year to a forecast of around 40% by the end of this year. Something close to 3/4 of businesses say they intend to deploy agents inside that window. Against, and this is the number I would put on the slide if I were presenting this to a board, over 40% of agentic artificial intelligence projects are forecast to be cancelled before the end of next year, on cost and on unclear business value. So the picture is not a straight line up. It is a very large number of organisations starting, and a very large number of them stopping.
But there is a harder objection than cost, surely. A company is not just a set of tasks. A company is a legal thing. Who signs?
And that is the wall, and it is the most useful thing in this entire episode, so I want to be exact about it. A model can execute the work of a business. It cannot be the business. Legal personhood requires a person or a registered entity. A bank account requires a legal owner. A contract requires a party that can be sued. So every one of these so-called zero-human companies, when you look underneath, is running inside somebody's limited company with a director, and that director is on the hook. The machine executes the human signs, which means the 18-month claim, in the form it is usually made, is not wrong so much as it is misdescribed. What is arriving is not a company with no humans. It is a company with one human, whose entire remaining job is accountability.
And that is our world exactly, is it not? Because a broadcaster is not a set of tasks either. It is a license.
It is a license. And this is why I think broadcast is the most interesting industry to watch this play out in, rather than the most threatened. Every one of us operates under an accountability structure that was designed long before any of this, and it is unusually clear. Somebody holds the license. That somebody answers for what went out. It does not matter whether a person, a play-out automation system, or a generative model put the frames on the air. It does not transfer to a vendor because you bought a tool, and it does not transfer to a model because the model made the choice. So take that AI-only channel and ask the question that nobody in the coverage asked. If it broadcasts something defamatory, who is liable? Not the model. Not the creator who typed the prompt, probably. The entity that published it, which is a company with directors, with a registered address, sitting behind $4 million of venture funding. The channel has no people in it. The business absolutely has people on the hook.
So the practical version, somebody running a media operation hears all this on a Monday morning. What do they actually do?
3 things, and none of them are glamorous. First, be extremely honest about which part of your output is the middle of the market. If a meaningful share of what you make exists to fill a schedule rather than to be sought out, that is the part exposed to infinite supply, and you should be planning for it now, rather than being surprised by it in 2 years. Second, stop evaluating this on quality and start evaluating it on cost per hour, because quality is the variable that moves fastest and cost is the one that decides. Third, and this is the one I would actually act on this week, write down where accountability sits in every automated process you already run, not where the technology sits, where the signature sits, because the organizations that will handle the next 3 years, well, are not the ones with the best models. They are the ones that can answer instantly and in writing the question of who is responsible when it goes wrong. That is the thing the machine cannot take from you. And it is also the thing that quietly turns out to be the job.
And your honest prediction on the 18 months?
I think we will absolutely see a business that operates with no staff and generates real revenue. And I think it will happen sooner than 18 months, because in a narrow enough niche, it has arguably happened already. What we will not see is a company without a person who answers for it, because that is not a technology problem. It is a law problem. And the law is not moving at the speed of the models. So the channel, with nobody in it, still has somebody behind it. It always did. And the question worth asking about any of this in our industry or anyone else's is not what the machine can now do. It is who is standing there when it gets it wrong.
Thanks for listening to Reinventing Broadcast. Subscribe for more on AI content and the future of media. And visit ancast.tv for more info on Ben himself, the resources, other content, and news.